Well, we've been looking at linear equations, beginning to look at that. And specifically, we've been looking at standard form, which is one of the ways in which we can write linear equations. And again, a linear equation is one in which if I were to graph the equation of the line, then I'm going to get a straight line. Now, when it comes into graphing that, one of the key things that we may want to know that actually will help make our job easier in terms of graphing a linear equation is finding the x and y intercepts. Now, an x-intercept would be where the line is going to cross the x-axis, and the y-intercept is where it's going to cross the y-axis. And so if we look at it, kind of just sketch out a graph. Well, here we got the x-axis, that's the horizontal axis, and here we got the y-axis. And if I've got a line that's running right here, well, this is my x-axis, my x-intercept, excuse me, where the graph is crossing the x-axis, and at the same time, this would be my y-intercept, where the graph is crossing the y-axis. Now, how do we find these? Well, we can find, well, there's several ways, and we'll look a little bit later how we can find the x and y intercepts from the graph itself by viewing the graph. And then we're also going to look at doing that by tables. A third way would be we could be viewing a group of ordered pair. And so there's various ways that we can find an x and y intercept, but specifically what we're going to look at today is how to find an x and y intercept from the equation itself. Now, if I want to find the x-intercept, then, and I have an equation, I just set y as equal to 0, and this will allow me to find the x-intercept. Now, that may sound a little bit opposite. In fact, it is opposite, but I need to just think about it as opposite. If I want to find the x-intercept, I set y to 0. And at the same time, if I want to find the y-intercept in the equation, well, I just set x equal to 0 and then solve it. So let's take a look at what we're looking at here. So let's look at this equation right here. We've got 2x plus y equals minus 2. Well, if I want to find the x-intercept, I can set y is equal to 0. Well, then that's going to just give me 2x equals minus 2, because y is 0, and I divide both sides by 2, and the x-intercept is going to be at minus 1. Okay? All right, now, what if I want to find the y-intercept? Well, let's just set x equal to 0. Let's see, I would have 2 times 0 plus y equals minus 2. Well, 2 times 0 is just 0. And there I'm left with y is equal to minus 2. So the x-intercept would be minus 1, and the y-intercept would be minus 2 for this equation right here. Now, let's look at this second equation. We got 3x minus 6y equals minus 3. All right, we're going to try to find the x-intercept. Let's do that one first. Well, I set y is equal to 0, so I've got 3x minus 6 times 0 equals minus 3. Well, 6 times 0 is just 0. I got 3x equals minus 3. I divide both sides by 3, and x is going to equal minus 3 divided by 3 is going to give me minus 1. It's going to be minus 1. Okay, now what about the y-intercept? Well, I set x equal to 0. So I got 3 times 0 equals 3 times 0 minus 6y equals minus 3. Well, 3 times 0 is 0, so now I've got minus 6y equals minus 3. Nope, forgot my y. Equals minus 3. I divide both sides by minus 6. and I end up with minus 3 over minus 6, which I could reduce down to 1/2. So here we got the x-intercept is minus 1, and the y-intercept is 1/2. Now, let's look at this third equation. I got y equals 2x. Okay, well, let's find the y-intercept here first. So I'm going to set x is equal to 0. Well, y equals 2 times 0. Well, then y is just equal to 0. Now, what about the y-intercept in this? Excuse me. The x-intercept in this. Well, I set y equal to 0. So I got y equals 2x. And so I divide both sides by 2. Well, 2 into 0 is going to be 0. And so the x-intercept is also 0. Now, let's go for this fourth one. I got x minus y equals minus 1. I want to find what do we want to find first? Let's find the x-intercept first. X minus 0 equals minus 1. Well, x minus 0 is just going to give me x, and x is going to equal minus 1. And let's see, equal minus 1. X is equal to minus 1. And if I want to find the y-intercept, well, I said x is equal to 0, so I got x minus y equals minus 1. Now, I got a minus sign in front of that y, and so minus y equals minus 1, but that's not giving me the y-intercept because I got to divide both sides by minus 1. And when I do, I'm going to get y is equal to 1. Okay, another way, while I'm thinking about this, another way that we can see x and y intercepts represented would be in the form of ordered pair. And so if I were to see an ordered pair, 0, in this case 0 minus 1, well, x is equal to 0, y is equal to, that's not minus 1, but plus 1. Y is equal to 1. That is another way of representing the y-intercept of that equation. Move here to the next one. I got minus 2x plus y equals minus 2. Let's find the x-intercept first. We're going to do that by setting y equal to 0. So I've got minus 2x plus 0 equals minus 2. And that goes away. And now I'm going to divide both sides by minus 2, excuse me. Well, minus 2 divided by minus 2 is 1. Now, here's how I could see that represented in an ordered pair. I could see an ordered pair of 1, 0, which is telling me that when y is 0, x is equal to 1. All right, how about the y-intercept in this one? I said x is equal to 0. Well, minus 2 times 0 equals 0, and shazam, y is equal to minus 2. That's an easy one. And then lastly, let's hit this last one here. I want to x-intercept first. I'm going to set y is equal to 0. So 2 times 0 is just 0, and I'm left with x is equal to 4. That's the x-intercept of that equation. And if I want to find the y-intercept, I put x is equal to 0. Well, then that's going to initially leave me with just 2y equals 4. I divide 2 both sides, and it's going to end up with y is equal to 2. And so the x-intercept in this equation is 4, and the y-intercept is 2. Now, what we're going to learn is once we have these 2 points right here, an x-intercept and a y-intercept, we can graph the equation on a coordinate plane. We'll take that up at a later time.